This week, Jews all over the world begin to read the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus, of course, tells a story about our enslavement and the movement from slavery to freedom. It is our foundational story as the Jewish people. That we don't tell a story of our being descendant from kings and queens or royalty, but that we are descendants of slaves. And we learn in our tradition it's to teach us to be empathetic, to be compassionate, of the value of freedom, and to have a fierce sense of justice. It's part of the DNA of the Jewish people. When we left slavery, it says that we were to go to the Egyptians and ask them for their jewelry. Some people looked at that and said, what the heck is going on there? And the rabbis, a few thousand years later, as they are wont to do, they figured it out, and they said what was happening is the Jews had been enslaved for hundreds of years. They deserved reparations. And that jewelry was their reparations for their hundreds of years of slavery. And at that moment, the Egyptians had an opportunity to right historical wrong. Unlike what has happened here in this country, there has been no reparations for the black community for their hundreds of years of slavery. 40 acres and a mule never came to be. And Reconstruction after the Civil War did not bring equity for the black community. There were many advances that were made shortly after the end of the Civil War, but by the turn of the 20th century, we saw those strives evaporate. A new racial system was put in place in the South, resting on disenfranchisement of black voters, a rigid system of racial segregation, and the relegation of African Americans to low-wage agricultural and domestic employment, and legal and extra-legal violence to punish those who challenged the new order. We know what this was called, the Jim Crow laws. The rise of the KKK, violent racism that threatened the black community with lynchings and other physical violence and harassment. But the discrimination was not just in the South. Yes, even here in the North, there was discrimination in education, healthcare, and housing, just to name a few areas. When Martin Luther King spoke here at Beth Emet 65 years ago today, he had come at the heels of the success of the Montgomery bus boycott, and a few years earlier, when Brown versus Board of Ed declared the Supreme Court that separate is not equal. It seemed that there was a possibility that the black community would now finally be fully integrated into American society. And when Martin Luther King spoke here in 1958, he said, "It's a great time to be an American." That's what he said. And then I quote part of his speech. "We stand together on the threshold of the most constructive period in our nation's history. We have broken loose from the Egypt of slavery. We have moved through the wilderness of separate but equal. Now we stand on the border of the promised land of integration." But unfortunately, as we know, we've been standing on that border for a long time. And it shouldn't really take us that long to cross the Jordan. If you've ever been there recently, it's like a little teeny stream. But it's not about, of course, the physical movement. It's about the impediments that are still in place within our society. That even after the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, in the last 55 years since Martin Luther King was assassinated, we've seen much backsliding. Inequity in our criminal justice system, education, healthcare, among others, this inequity still persists. And yet here in Evanston, we see a beacon of light and potential for real movement to continue Martin Luther King's legacy, to build, as he called it, the beloved community, an equitable and just society. And I'm so delighted that we're going to get to hear more about that movement and the excitement that is happening right here. So I'd like to invite Matt Feldman, who is the chair of our reparations committee here at Beth Emet, to introduce our speaker for this evening.
Shabbat Shalom. So as Rabbi London said, in a few minutes it will be my honor to introduce Robin Bruce Simmons, a visionary and leader in the reparations movement, and somebody I'm proud to support and call my friend. But first I wanted to place some context around reparations, at least as I think about it, because there are a lot of misconceptions and preconceived notions about what is and what is not reparations. And in order to understand reparations, you really have to think about it in the context of repair, which is really where the word comes from. And thinking about it that way, let me offer an approach to looking at how things are happening here and around the country, and perhaps you'll find it as one you can look at this way as well. I focus first on the harm, and Rabbi London started talking about the harm. 400 years of subjugation based on skin color alone, creating an underclass of consistently denied rights in every aspect of life, including today. This is not a historic issue, it is a current issue. Unequal access to housing, education, employment, wealth creation, and generational wealth transfer. Unfair treatment under the law. It's not just about quality of life, though. It's also about life expectancy, even here in Evanston. The harm is pervasive, and as I said, it exists today. And most people here wouldn't dispute my description of the scope of the harm. The challenge therein lies in addressing the harm. And there, the UN offered a perspective several years ago and provided 6 methods of repair. Cessation, which is to end the harm. Restitution, which is to restore what was taken away. Compensation, which is to actually pay something above and beyond that. Rehabilitation, to deal with the effects of the harm. Satisfaction, to acknowledge that the harm occurred and use memorials and other methods of doing that. And then a guarantee of non-repetition. This is a big lift. It's a very big lift. And the way I like to think of it is the scale of what should happen can often diminish the perceived value of what does happen. A human rights issue, unfortunately in this case, needs to largely be addressed through the political process. And that's what's so special about Evanston. Because the fact is that no government, no municipality, no city, no state, and no action by the federal government had caused reparations to be paid before the city of Evanston decided to act. As Robin Bruce Simmons has said, we needed to move our efforts beyond apology and ceremony. A reparative policy was the next option, and in fact, it was really the only option. Being first, there is no model. It requires vision, it requires commitment, and quite frankly, it requires bravery. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and I was reminded of this the other day, also known as Der Alte Rebbe, said, "A little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness." And what Evanston did was shine a little bit of light where none had been before. We know that the Mishnah calls upon us to engage in tikkun olam, repair the broken world, we're told, and that Hillel summarized the entire Torah in one sentence: do not do unto others that which is hateful to you. At Beth Emet, we have long demonstrated that these institutions don't just apply to our actions as individuals toward one another, but our roles of society as a whole. We understand our responsibility to our society at its core because it's part of our culture. We have a social justice coalition that is very well supported within this congregation. I marvel every month at the meetings and the number of people doing incredible things. And we have a racial justice committee out of which sprung our reparations working group, with so many amazing volunteers doing such incredible and impactful work. So some of us concluded about 2 years ago that we had a moral obligation and a religious obligation to support reparations. The working group began with a policy paper, which we called In Support of Reparations, which focused on making the case, both morally and religiously, and the Jewish cultural case for supporting reparations, while explaining what was happening in Evanston and nationally, and discovered it was not only widely distributed around the city, it ended up getting global distribution. We developed Zoom-based educational sessions, including a panel discussion with Robin and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and our own Jan Schakowsky and Pastor Michael Neighbors, who we all know, and it was moderated by Rabbi London. As our working group grew in number, we engaged in outreach in other faith communities, which continues today. And in 2022, some of you may have been part of this, we offered a Stolen Beam course of 4 sessions and launched the Shuva campaign to raise money for the nonprofit fund, which is the Beth Emet leg of the interfaith clergy effort that I'm sure Rabbi London will talk a little more about. In 2 years, we've observed, supported, participated in, and watched the growing momentum of reparations in Evanston, around the country and around the globe. If you want to join us in this important work, please contact me. Which brings me back to the commitment, insight, and bravery that it takes to lead the reparations movement, and the central role that Robin Rue Simmons has played in this growing movement to shed light and dispel darkness. Robin was the alderman who motivated the city to act and chairs the city's reparations committee. Robin has founded First Repair, a nonprofit focused on sharing best practices, creating tools, and developing viable models for local reparations policies. And most recently, Robin was named a Pritzker Fellow of the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago. Robin has been an amazing visionary guide and convener supporting the unbelievable number of local reparations initiatives around the country. The last count that I saw was over 460 initiatives. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee refers to Evanston as the epicenter of the movement's success. And Pastor Michael Neighbors says that Evanston is the inspiration for reparations. If Evanston inspires reparations, Robin Rue Simmons is at the core of that inspiration, as her vision, her commitment, and yes, her bravery sets the standard for the rest of us. Robin, would you please come up and address us?
Thank you, Matt. I have to say that I've been really busy. And a lot of the work is it's uncomfortable and it's a little bit stressful. And even today, I had a really important keynote earlier at the Union League Club of Chicago. 45 minutes is a long time. And I was a little worked up about being here and being prepared. And my friend Ellen Feldman told me, don't sweat it. And so I've taken her direction and I'm not gonna sweat it. And I wanna let you know that I really feel at home here. And I know this is a synagogue, and I know that I am a Christian. In fact, I should have opened with greetings from my church and my pastor, the great Pastor Carlos Moody, where our home is Faith Temple Church. We will see you on Sunday. So I just feel at home. And I'm in my own community. And I'm so grateful for the friendship that we have with Beth Emet. Rabbi London, thank you for your strong partnership, the way that you lead so boldly, the way that you give of yourself, the way that you have shared the congregation, the way that you have contributed to the movement in ways that you don't even know yet. But I use your story and the story of the congregation here, including my partner in the work and collaborator, Matt Feldman, and now Ellen, all the time. And you all have inspired not just the nation, but a global movement. And so you may or may not know, I don't know how chatty Matt is, but not only does Matt show up for us in virtual spaces, but he's physically gone as far as Bellagio, Italy, and he and I were together in Rome, where we delivered a presentment for reparations to the Vatican, to the Catholic Church, for their initiation of the transatlantic slave trade. I don't know, did anybody know that Matt did that? Okay, some of you did. So I'm just so grateful, yes. I am so grateful. And this weekend is an incredibly special King holiday and season. My values really are informed by my faith and family, and then Dr. King's legacy and leadership and the example that he led. And it so happens that this nation will recognize Dr. King's life and commemorate his life on January 16th. And in 1865, on January 16th, Special Field Order 15 was passed. And that was a great hope for people of African descent that had been enslaved, a promise of 40 acres and a mule, 40 parcels of land that was later rescinded. And since then, we've moved on to continue the fight for reparations. And so I say this going back to that moment in history, because what we are doing in Evanston is very special. It's bold, it's overdue, but it's not novel. I want to make it very clear that people of African descent, Black folks in Evanston and beyond, we've been fighting for our liberation, empowerment, and repair since we've been here. It's a 400+ year struggle. So after Special Field Order 15, some of us know of the work of Callie House, a woman, a Black woman, a freed woman that worked to bring reparations by pensions in repair for stolen labor. Moving on to more contemporary times, we had Queen Mother Audley Moore, who worked also in partnership with the Civil Rights Movement to advance reparations. John Conyers, rep in Congress, introduced H.R. 40 in 1989, and here we are in 2023, still not even having a commission to study reparations. But in Evanston, Illinois, we had the audacity in 2019 to say yes to repair, yes to the uncomfortable process, yes to the unknown, but yes, we will work together and figure it out. And so when people ask me, how do I feel about the criticism, we've launched the discussion. It's not a settlement. We're building on the work. We're doing great things. We've inspired a global movement with local initiatives. We have pushed the needle for federal support for reparations, last Congress ending with 217 yes votes in Congress, a Senate companion bill, 300 national institutions in support of reparations, and we believe that it was inspired by the commitment here in Evanston. And so I do serve continue to serve on the Evanston Reparations Committee, where, if you've been following it, our initial commitment in 2019 has been expanded with an additional $10 million to expand the commitment of reparations. This fund is coming from our real estate transfer tax. We are continuing to look for additional revenue streams, additional ways to expand the project, and administrators so that we can get these dollars out now that we have committed the funds. You should know that we do have the funds now to disperse our ancestors. Hearing from the community's feedback we did move forward with a process that disperses our ancestors first, so those that were directly harmed. And so where we're at next in the process is looking for the right administrator to disperse funds. Where we have to go is full repair. And Matt mentioned 5 components of full repair. We all have that goal. Yes, right now we're focused on housing in Evanston, but full repair under international law standards, having actually just come back from the United Nations in December, working there, understanding more the work that came out of Durban in 2001. We are fighting for not just forms of compensation and restitution, but also just restoring the dignity of a people, of Black people, through various ways, not just compensation and restitution, and that's what we talk about most often, but also satisfaction. How do you restore our name? How do we get truth in our education? How do we properly have representation in leadership positions? And so this is the work of the committee. It is a national movement. It's very, very, very complicated. It can be very uncomfortable, but I'll tell you that partnerships and allies like those here at Beth Emet on the racial justice and social justice committees, working together, being uncomfortable alongside us, stretching yourselves, educating and informing your friends in the congregation is making an incredible difference. And so what's happening here in this synagogue and in partnership with the interfaith community of Evanston is in ways being replicated. The interfaith community in Evanston is now a model that's being replicated like Evanston reparations is being replicated. And I hope that resources come soon so that can be codified, so you don't have to pull your hair out like I am, doing one-off calls and traveling to every place, that you can be more organized and spread this widely among the interfaith community, who I believe is best prepared, organized, educated, has the infrastructure, the heart, the spirit, the morals, understand through scripture and so on why reparations, understand the legislative process, why reparations, has a comprehensive understanding of that. And so the addition, the value add that the interfaith community has brought to the Evanston reparation is, I can't say enough. We cannot do enough at a municipal level. We don't have the capacity. We have elected boards that are full-time, part-time, I'm not sure, but how you want to classify it, but we don't have the resources, and we need thought partners. And also, the totality of the harm in Evanston is not within the purview completely of the city of Evanston. So other institutional accomplices were here in Evanston during a period of anti-Blackness, during a period of Jim Crow segregation and so on. And so we are hoping that other institutions will soon step up, including Northwestern, including other industries in town. I must acknowledge the incredible leadership of the Evanston Community Foundation and what they have done under the leadership of Saul Anderson and the entire board in adding repair as one of its values as they lead the Community Foundation. And so we have a long, long, long road ahead of us, but I want you all to know that your efforts are recognized and making an incredible difference. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee knows very well about the work that's coming out of Beth Emet. She's been here. It was a virtual time then, but she still is very well informed. She was just in Evanston last month. She and our Congresswoman Jan Jakowski were at our local reparations symposium, where we had 100 leaders from across the nation that came in to learn and share best practices and go back to their cities and implement something that was appropriate for their city. Maybe not an exact replication of what's happening in Evanston, but something based on their harm and their city and their opportunities. They've been inspired by Evanston. And so this has been life-changing for me personally. I knew that I wasn't going to run for re-election, and I knew that I would continue serving in a way that would empower and strengthen Black community. And it was an evolution of thought and learning and experience that led me to thinking about reparations locally, always having supported it on a national level, HR 40, as long as I've been conscious of it. But it was a revelation in 2019, in February to be exact, when I was looking at data, and I said to myself, reparations is not only due for the transatlantic slave trade and federal harms and crimes against the humanity of Black people. I'm living in a city, I'm living on a block, in fact, that is in a census tract, 8092, that is the most disadvantaged in this city. Because I'm Black and I live in 8092, I have less access to all the livability that we are guaranteed here in Evanston. I don't have a neighborhood school for my children. I have environmental air quality issues. I cannot get to healthy food. It's a registered food desert with the Chicago Food Depository. We don't have any community amenities, businesses, and so on. Our property taxes are overassessed. We are discriminated against in lending and appraising and so on. And this is just because I'm a Black woman. This is because we live in a segregated, by design. This wasn't something that we selected. This was intentional in the city of Evanston. And as much as I love our city, this was intentional. And so to work towards repair was an evolution of the work that I had done over 20 years. And I'm just so grateful that I'm able to do this work in a city that is bold and courageous and innovative and intelligent, and has a history, honestly, of being progressive and bold. Evanston, Illinois was among the first to address school desegregation and fair housing, among the first in the nation. And so we have a history of being bold and courageous, and this is our next step. Please do continue to support the work. Please do look out for updates from the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston, which is organizing more so and will be able to share more information on how and what next steps are with the fund. But whether you've been informed or not, there is a goal to get to $1 million before remedies begin to be dispersed. And so the RSAE will also go through an additional pretty extensive community process to determine how the funds are used. And so I probably should pause and separate the two. The RSAE is to supplement what's happening at the City of Evanston, understanding that the City of Evanston will not be able to address all of the harm, and all of the harm is not within the purview. And so know that more information is coming from the RSAE as well. And so as a woman of faith, happy to be in the sanctuary. It's not my sanctuary, but my travel schedule has not allowed me to be in my own sanctuary, and I'm just grateful to be here, feeling at home, listening to Mr. Clark, who I feel like I've been listening to, not my whole life, because you're a young man, but a long time, and my dear childhood friend, Tina, who I love, and Renee, I don't know if she's behind this podium or not, but has been my choir director at a few different seasons in my life. And so I'm just very grateful to be here, and I want you to know that I'm still in community. It may look like I'm gone, but I'm still here in the neighborhood. Our offices are right in the 5th Ward. My home remains in the 5th Ward, and I am centered here in this work. It is my priority, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for my friends, and I'm grateful for this entire congregation and the leadership of Rabbi London and the entire interfaith community that believes, that doesn't sit back and critique and wait to see what's going to happen and if it's going to succeed or not. It succeeds when we do the work. And so the interfaith community is taking a cue, taking direction from the great Dr. King, leading in the urgency of now, understanding it's always the right time to do the right thing. That's what's happening with the interfaith community under the leadership of Rabbi London and her colleagues, her clergy colleagues. And so with that, I don't know if there were any special information you wanted me to share, Rabbi London, but I will be here after the service, and if there are any questions that I can answer for any of you one-off, I'm available. I'm also available just by email. I'm at robin@firstrepair.org. And again, thank you. This is an exciting weekend. Tomorrow, I'll be on with some clergy from the interfaith community for a community coffee, which is on Radio La Différence, the Fifth Ward radio station. And on Sunday, of course, I'll be with the interfaith community at Faith Temple Church. Very much looking forward to that. And then on Monday, can I get a show of hands? Anyone going to see The Big Payback at the AMC Theater? Okay, perfect. It's sold out now, so if you wanted to come, it's too late. But you can watch it on PBS at 10 p.m. On channel, I think it's 11. And so if you need to share that with any Evanstonians or supporters outside of Evanston, they can go to PBS and find out their local broadcast, or they can go to this firstrepair.org and find that out as well. One thing that I do want to share is we're going to be launching a website for the Big Payback that will also include a discussion guide, which has segments of the documentary and very thoughtful guided conversation and other tools that you can use if you want to use it corporately, or if you want to use it independently with your families at home. There will also be a toolkit that is more for institutions and organizations and municipalities that will show you best practices and a path towards a viable and funded, actual measurable reparations initiative, and not one that is ceremonial. And so just thank you for the support. I feel the love. When I'm in community, I always run into Beth Emet members, and they make themselves known and tell me what committee they're on and who they're friends with and that sort of thing. And I just love it when it happens. I met one of your members, my grandson, does hockey, and somebody in the congregation's son is in hockey, and we had a great talk, and they're really excited about being able to support reparations. And so Beth Emet, grace and peace to you, lots of love and gratitude, and thank you for partnering and believing in the work of reparations.
Thank you so much, Robin. Over New Year's, my husband Danny and I had the opportunity to visit the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee, which is built on the site where Martin Luther King was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel. The last time I had been there was 10 years ago in 2013 on our Sankofa trip, when teens from Beth Emet and teens from Second Baptist, some of the other black churches in town, went on a civil rights trip. And yes, Emily Neidenberg's nodding her head, one of the chaperones here. An amazing journey to understand the history of racism in our country and to see where racism still is, not only down south, but here within the Evanston community. But it's always moving to be there. My husband hadn't been there before, and our hotel was near the Lorraine Motel, and we walked out of the hotel, and we saw the Lorraine Motel. He just stood there for a moment, stunned, and his eyes welled up with tears. What a sight. If you've never been there, you need to be there and to experience it. There's a plaque below the balcony where Martin Luther King was shot with this quote from the book of Genesis. This is when Joseph's brothers were contemplating killing him. And we read this in Genesis 37. Here comes the master of dreams. Now then, let us kill him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. At that spot, Martin Luther King was killed. But his dream of creating the beloved community, a society which is truly equitable and compassionate, is alive and well here in Evanston. I'm proud to carry on the Beth Emet legacy of civil rights that began with Rabbi Polish 65 years ago when he invited Martin Luther King to speak, and continues to the work of so many in our congregation and in the greater community. Folks, this was a historic moment here at Beth Emet. Do you understand that 65 years from now, people will say, Robin Rue Simmons. Robin Rue Simmons spoke from this bema. And the reparations movement that we started here in Evanston has now gone international, and there's been real repair. And the dream that Martin Luther King had will continue. Because the dreamer might have been assassinated, but his dream lives within Robin Rue Simmons and with each and every one of us. It is a great day to be alive and to have the leadership of such incredible people. Thank you, Robin, for all that you do, for your heart and your soul, your perseverance despite it all. We are with you, following you. Know you always have our support. And just another reminder of all the amazing activities that are happening this week, that 3 p.m. on Sunday at Faith Temple, which is Robin's church, so she's been here at our congregation. We need to go to her church. Pastor Carlos Moody, a Grammy Award-winning musician, is the pastor there. Yep. And the music's going to be great. And the Interfaith Coalition that we've built to support reparations, which is now getting to be like 18 or 19 congregations. We're going to announce how much money we have raised together as a community. We're not going to let you know now. You got to come. It's also going to be live streamed, so if you can't be there physically, really, you need to be there. There'll be clergy from all of those different congregations. I'll be participating. Pastor Michael Neighbors and I get the privilege of doing the benediction at the end of the service together. And then on Monday, I also want to announce that in the morning, even before the movie in the afternoon at 11 a.m., we'll be meeting at the First United Methodist Church for the Walk for Warmth, sponsored by Interfaith Action. Interfaith Action, of course, supports our local soup kitchens and has a warming center and takes care of the most vulnerable in our community, and how important the work of Interfaith Action is. And we always get a big group of us from Beth Emet, so please be there. Leslie Schuller will be leading us. I'll be there. It's going to be warmer this year than it was last year. We were frozen out there, so. Pardon? But rainy. Okay, well, so bring umbrellas this time. It is Chicago in the winter. What are we going to do? And then at 5:30 p.m., the big payback will be playing at the AMC Theater. We're sorry that the tickets are already sold out, but you can see it on PBS, and looking forward to perhaps having a conversation here about it at Beth Emet. There is going to be a talk back for those of you who are able to be at the movie, and I'll be participating in the talk back afterwards. I'll be on the panel, so that should be a wonderful, amazing weekend. Really, it is just amazing to be alive and to be here and to be able to do this work together. Thank you again, Robin, for your leadership. And now,